Hello everyone, welcome back to Goodwood for the second instalment of the Festival of Speed series. This time I'll be embracing the spirit of the real Goodwood Festival Speed event by running up the hill in a number of early Grand Prix and endurance races ranging from the 1900s to the 1930s. Okay, so first up we have the Renault AK Grand Prix. This car was the race winner of the first ever Grand Prix, the 1906 French Grand Prix, which held on closed public roads around Le Mans. There's 12 laps of a 103km circuit, was held over 2 days. It's quite a long event, as the car gets quite sideways into turn 1. Russell's Grand Prix car, and it is getting driven to the limit here. It was driven by Frank Sis, a Hungarian engineer who was originally Louis Renault's riding mechanic before he became a driver. He ended up finishing the race with an overall time of 12 hours and 14 minutes, which was 32 minutes ahead of second place. And one of the main reasons this car was so successful was that it ran with a detachable rim with a tyre that was already attached. An innovation by Michelin at the time. The team could change a punctured tyre only 4 minutes compared to 15 minutes for their rivals. You see the car coming up here. Oh, big sideways moment through the hay there. I'd say not the fastest run in the world. It comes up through the final corner. And we're going to record time of 1 minute 23.9. Alright, next up, we've got one of the rivals of the Renault in early Grand Prix racing. This is the Itala 36/45. Now this wasn't quite as competitive as the Renault, as you can probably tell from the leisurely start there. It was quite underpowered and overweight. Oh, as we see it get a bit sideways there, little dab of wheel off into the grass. Driver is right up on the wheel there. Yes, this car was that overweight that it could not use the detachable rims that Michelin had developed, as the spares would actually bring it over the weight limit at the time. Although it wasn't the fastest car in the world, it was very reliable. And that's where it came into its own, because it was one of the cars that participated in the Peking to Paris trial in 1907. This model not quite. The 35/45 was the model that was the winner of the Peking to Paris trial, which covered the 10,000 mile journey in exactly 2 months. No mean feat, given this was 1907 and there weren't a lot of roads across Asia and Europe at that point. I'm going to say very leisurely time so far. It's not going to crack the 130s here. I think this will be the slowest time on the board by quite a way. Comes across at a 136.2. Moving on into the 1920s now. And this is a Bugatti Type 32. It was built to compete in the 1923 French Grand Prix held in Tours. Earned the nickname Tank de Tours for the appearance that quite resembled tanks of that era. Type 32 had its best position in 4th place of that race. It was one of the first ever streamlined Grand Prix cars, who were designed based on an aircraft wing, which had the unfortunate effect of creating lift at speed, as you can see through Molecombe there. Car getting quite sideways. It was quite ahead of its time though, in the fact that it's straight streamlined. It's sideways again through the flint wall. Only really raced for 1 season, and it was replaced by the Type 35, which was very much Bugatti's most successful car of the era, and one we'll see come up the hill a bit later on. 107.6 for the Type 32, as we move on to one of the rivals of the Type 32 in the French Grand Prix of 23. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this car, I apologise. It's the I do not speak French, so I will mispronounce this, the Voisin C6 Laboratoire. Absolutely butchered the pronunciation there of the name of the car, sorry. Okay. It's also experimented with some aircraft-inspired design. So they were originally an early aircraft company, moved into automotive manufacturing after World War I. They brought some aeronautical designs into their cars. Interestingly enough, this was one of the first cars to ever use a monocoque chassis, which majority of cars use nowadays. You can see the small propeller on the front there, that drove the water pump. See, hit the brakes, it stops. And chief engineer on this car, Andre Lefebvre, moved to Citroën after this, and he designed the Traction Avant and the 2CV, so two very well-known cars. It's a close time there with the Type 32 of 108.8. We keep going with the French Grand Prix cars. This is the Delage 15S8 of 1927. It's one of the most successful early Grand Prix cars. It won all 5 Grand Prix races in 1927 with Robert Benoist behind the wheel. Again, absolutely butchered the pronunciation there. Debuted in 1926, though the issues with the exhaust placement meant that drivers were burning their feet. Had to stop, pull their feet in a bucket of water, which sounds extremely painful. Well, that's the sort of things drivers went through in these early Grand Prix cars, as there was a lot of experimentation going on. Very successful car, however. Delage were on the verge of becoming bankrupt after the 1927 season and pulled out of Grand Prix racing altogether. But the car did keep going in Grand Prix racing and in privateer hands for quite a long time, so well into the 1930s. It was still competitive as well. You see it's going to cross the line with a 1057. Again, we got more early French Grand Prix cars. We've got the Bugatti Type 35 as I mentioned earlier. This was really the first car to ever be sold as a custom racing car. Obviously you see a lot in modern GT racing. There were around 500 of these built between 1924 and 1930. And they were ultra successful in everything they did. Some of the notable accomplishments include the Targa Florio 5 times in a row from 1925 to 1929, the 1926 Grand Prix World Championship and the inaugural Monaco Grand Prix in 1929. All in all, recorded over 1,000 race wins in its time, which is incredible considering the era that it raced in. Oh, a huge sideways moment there. Interesting to see how this stacks up to the other Grand Prix cars. It's going to be a bit slower, surprisingly. 110.7. Thought it would be quicker than the Type 32. Right, we've got the world's fastest lorry on the line, as it was interestingly described by Etoile Bugatti. It's the Bentley 4.5 litre blower. Now, I know all the Bentley purists out there are absolutely going to be scoffing at the fact that this is a supercharged Bentley, as I'm sure all the proper Bentley fans would be thinking. Because Walter Owen Bentley was not a fan of forced induction, stating that to supercharge a Bentley engine was to pervert its design and corrupt its performance. Well, at this stage, he was not the majority owner of Bentley, so he didn't end up getting his way. Although the car did prove to be quite unreliable when it ran at Le Mans. Failed to finish there, whereas the non-supercharged models had been quite successful previously. See at the big Bentley come across the line. It's going to be very close to the Type 35 with a 111.1. The Type 35 has just edged that out. Right. Now we're going Italian, the Maserati 8CM. It's quite a lot of wheel spin off the line there. This was a car that debuted in 1933. It's quite successful. It took 4 Grand Prix victories in that season. Although by 1934, oh, as the car gets very sideways in the second corner there. Yes, by 1934 it wasn't quite competitive as the Silver Arrows came in. The Mercedes was quite dominant through 1934. It was quite outclassed by both Mercedes and Auto in that season. It has a 3-litre supercharged straight 8 engine, produces 240 horsepower. Sounds like a lot from the era, but as you see with the next 2 German cars coming up, you can tell why this got outpaced. Quite a spectacular slide there as well. It's a 1 minute 0.5. And here's one of the German cars I mentioned earlier. This is the Auto Union Type C. This was the 3rd evolution of Ferdinand Porsche's mid-engine design. It was finally successful in knocking off the previously dominant Mercedes top step of podium. Oh, and it's very sideways there. Which is no surprise when it produced around 520 horsepower from that supercharged 6-litre V16 engine, which was designed to be the largest engine they could possibly fit within the weight regulations of the class at the time. And as you can see, that power and weight at the rear makes for a very difficult car to drive. With a strong tendency towards oversteer as it gets right out sideways through the flint wall. This is going to be a spectacular run. We're a bit slow there. Had to brake before it went with the hay. The full 4-wheel drift there, and it crosses the line with a 59.4. Right, now we've got the car that knocked it off the perch, with the Mercedes-Benz W125. Mercedes, of course, the Auto Union's biggest rivals back then. They actually pulled out of the 1936 season halfway through, just so they could develop this car to beat Auto Union once again. And as you can see, this thing is insanely powerful for its time. There's a 5.7 litre straight 8 engine with a supercharger, producing over 620 horsepower, which was the most powerful engine in a circuit racing car until the late 1960s when Can-Am cars reached those power figures. And as you can see, this is insanely difficult to drive. Sideways everywhere. Yeah. It was actually a very dominant car in the 1937 season. Mercedes actually locked out top 4 in the European Grand Prix season that year. Crosses the line for 102.3, and I think that was all down to the fact it was a very difficult car to drive there. And with that final run complete, here's the leaderboard for this batch of cars. The Auto Union took it out with the only car to go sub-minute. Then we've got the Maserati and the Mercedes. 4 French Grand Prix cars altogether there. The Bentley blower, and then the 2 early Grand Prix cars of the Renault and the Itala. Hey, thanks for watching that one. Hope to join you again soon with some more Goodwood Festival of Speed, and remember to put any suggestions in the comments for what cars you'd like to see run up the hill.